I would like to think of that output as the yin and yang. Like, you need to be able to soak it up, but you also need to be able to give that away. And any opportunity that you have to give somebody something that creates value for them, call it a loop. I experience the same thing when I eat potato chips or pizza rolls. Like, that first one was good, let me have another one. Well, input is the same way. It's like, man, if you like that thing, you'll love this. You create a bit of a pipeline.
Hello, welcome back to Coach. Today, we are talking about input. I have with me Ken and John in studio, and they are the experts that are about to take us on a wild ride of discovering the strength of input. As I've told each of you during the season, if the strength is high for me, I like to engage with my guests and jump into the party, talk about how my strengths interact with theirs and the other strengths around it. This is 133 on my list. So Ken and John, you guys are going to take the lead here. Ken, could you tell everybody, just where you're from, coming in from, and, a little bit about you and tell us a little bit about your top 5, please.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm Ken Barr Jr. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and a licensed professional counselor. My wife and daughter and I live in Grand Haven, Michigan. So for those that want the input, want the map, there's the hand map right there, right next to the big lake. And my top 5 strengths are input, maximizer, arranger, woo, and learner. So I should probably share a little bit of input. I've been doing Clifton Strengths work for about 20 years, and in that time, I've helped more than 70,000 people discover their strengths.
How do you know when you might be an input? 70,000 people with their strengths, and Ken has some fun abilities with naming the strengths in order and other work that he's done. You will probably hear me refer to him as KBJ several times, listeners, because that's mostly how we interact with each other. Hope that's okay, Ken.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brandon.
Awesome. John
DeMarco. I live in the Nashville area with my family. I'm in my 20th year of coaching, but my very first coaching certification was the Clifton Strengths. Of course, then went by a different name. It's had a couple iterations, but it's always kept just a big place in my heart. And I love the opportunity to coach people and to have conversations around strengths. I currently run my own coaching business and work with executives from all different industries. And my top 5 are input, strategic, intellection, learner, and achiever.
All right, cool. Thank you both very much. So I am going to set you both up with the way that we have with most of our guests, and that is listening to each other's top 5, seeing some of the similarities and differences. And as we tell everyone, all strengths are in play. So if you want to dip low or talk about others and how they connect, you go right ahead and do that. So John, I'm going to come back to you, listening to Ken's strengths and starting to form questions. If you're, getting curious, as I would hope every good input would, about what you want to know, go ahead and dive in, John.
Yeah. So Ken, I'm wondering if there's a moment where just strengths came alive for you, where if you could think back to that moment, to that window where you just all of a sudden saw this whole new world through this, through these strengths lenses.
Sure. So I had a whole different career in student affairs. And one of the very first assignments I was given back when I was a career advisor / employment advisor / success advocate / life resources coordinator at a community college, I was given the task to find out everything I could about the then titled Strengths Quest. And I had been using the Strong Interest Inventory, Myers-Briggs, even Enneagram. And so I was very curious, high input, high learner, to find out what Strengths Quest was. And the maximizer part of me was, the crucial question was, who is using this assessment the best, to the best effect? What can it do for us? Because the other tools were highly effective in career advising. So I was interested to know what the value add would be here. And John, I talked to people all over North America, people that worked in in community colleges, private institutions, public institutions, even across industry. And the coolest theme came together, and that all of these people who don't know each other said that there's always somebody who doesn't believe that they have any strengths, and that this tool is different in that it kind of shows people what was there the whole time, why it's unique, and it's a huge confidence booster. So that was something like when I heard that so many different times from different people, I recognized it's like this is not a career assessment. This is something that has value for everyone. And that was about 20 years ago.
Okay. That sounds like 20 years ago was a great time period for both of us.
So I'm interested, if I can ask, what applications, where are you using Clifton Strengths?
Yeah. So I mainly have used it in one-on-one coaching with clients. And I've also done a few workshops in terms of, groups of leaders or employees. But I want to make sure that I'm getting to the heart of your question is about how am I using the strengths for myself, or how am I helping others to use them, elevate them?
I got input, John. It's both. I don't want it to be an either or. Give me all the input.
Yeah, excellent. Love it. Yeah, well, yeah. I feel ultimately I can't separate the work from the person. Before I had terminology like input or Gallup and those kinds of things. Right, when I was still in my 20s, when I worked as a journalist, I think that's when I formalized this whole process of collecting not so much things but ideas and resources and stories. And categorizing those kinds of things, having a place to put things, as well as making it easy to retrieve things. And I found that was a very natural kind of thing for me, that I really geeked out on it, that being organized in that way and having those resources at my fingertips was helpful as I was working on stories and interviewing people. And then when I decided to go to grad school, to a theological seminary, I shifted the types of resources I was gathering, the things that related to spiritual growth and leadership in the nonprofit world and things like that. And then when I worked as a Methodist pastor for a few years after seminary, I think at that point I had like 3 or 4 filing cabinets full of manila folders of all these different ideas and stories and excerpts and anecdotes to draw from, because I was doing public speaking all the time at that point, which eventually, when I made the turn to the business world and began coaching leadership development, that became ultimately electronic files, right? And I started getting ebooks, and so there's a lot fewer actual books physically, but there is a just treasure of digitized resources and a lot of stuff here. So I've seen that constant thread throughout my career in terms of input itself. Let me pause there and give you a chance to jump back in.
Sure. Well, you can see the value, I think, of the responsibility of the journalist, and to gather the facts, who, what, where, why, when. But I love the transition, and in your work, how you were empowered by your archive. Anytime that you saw something that I think that this audience would benefit from, you grabbed it and you saved it. And that's one of the critical behaviors that you see with almost everybody who leads with input. It's like, I'm going to hang on to this because it is likely that somebody somewhere is going to have value from it. Maybe.
Yeah. And it's funny, part of it, I think earlier, Bren, you might have said something about powerful memories for people with input. I don't happen to have the type of memory that I would like, to where I can just recall details. I'm a very visual learner. I take a lot of notes, which has been challenging as a coach to really disconnect from the note taking, right, and be fully present with the client. And so I have just found, maybe it's because of my early years as a journalist, with sitting there with my notepad in those county or city commission meetings, which were actually kind of scary at times, just this habit of writing things down, and I draw like diagrams and connections. And so I think I came to depend on having all those resources at my fingertips, because I couldn't retain necessarily all the minutia of things that I wanted to. The broad strokes, yes, the strategy, But again, I think it's so important that everything we're inputting has somewhere to go, and that's really easy to find it when we need it. And I think that's where my second strength has come in terms of filtering all that information and starting to see the patterns, and then really prioritizing which pieces of that information I'm going to use, right? Because there's so much, and rather than saying, okay, I want to share as much as possible, what are the most helpful things that I can share based on all this inputting? I think that's where the strategic comes in.
So, John, on that note, I want to bring up a question there. What I have found in my relationship with people with high input is that they may not know all of what they've learned because they're putting it where they can archive it, which gives them permission to, I put it there, I know where it is, I know where to find it. So what I have found remarkable, and Ken said it well with the archive, is they know where it all is. Oh, that piece of information I put over here, they may not know verbatim, but they know where the library is, and they can quickly sort through where it is. And so I have always wondered, did the digital age help inputters or overwhelm inputters? Because before you could put everything onto a tiny, little file or now in the cloud, you actually had to store the stuff. You actually had to have all the books. Now it's endless. You can know everything. And with AI, it's even more endless. Like inputters can go on overload. So both of those very interesting points for me. You also said something I want to mention about input output. Early in my days coaching, and for me, call it around 20 years ago, and talking to people about this strength, I found a connection between if a person with high input brought in something that they thought was relevant, important, but they didn't have a consistent source of output, it actually created dissonance. If they didn't feel like they were contributing or offering benefit or providing resources, that actually stopped a flow within them. And they would feel this sense of, as one described it, I'm just off. Something's not right. And once that flow was restored, and for one particular person I was coaching, she said, I know when that flow is happening with my input, and I'm very aware when it's not. What Clifton Strengths gave her was a word for it. She didn't connect to that word yet. And so when it happened, it was, oh my gosh, she almost got as much value from the output side of input as she did from input. So curious how you both might relate to some of those points there. Ken, I'll come over to you first.
Sure. So the answer to your first question is the digitization. I mean, these are the halcyon days of input. I've got a library. It's right down the hall here. And it's the whole room is just bookcases. And that's like maybe 1/10 of our archive. I've got books and other media stored everywhere. But digital gave us the opportunity to even emotionally just take a picture of something. Just having a video representation or audio allows you to, like all the college t-shirts that I had saved, Michigan going to the Rose Bowl, 1998. I'm not going to wear that shirt anymore, but I do like having the memory of when I took that road trip. And so just having a picture of the shirt has the same sort of effect when I look at it to remember what it was like to go on that trip with 10 of my best friends and see Michigan win the national championship. But I don't have to hang on to the shirt anymore. And my wife doesn't have to ask, yeah, go blue. Yeah, we slipped that in there. it, the digital part is something that just really expands. Like now, you don't even have to have it. I've got thumb drives here, but I don't need them. Well, I kind of need them. But the opportunity to put things in the cloud, the storage, it's just, these are really good days to have this strength. The second part is a thing where I like the metaphor of the sponge. Like input has super strong desire and capacity to soak up valuable information, tools, resources, but there is the same sort of satisfaction or joy when you can give it away. So I would like to think of input that output is the yin and yang. Like you need to be able to soak it up, but you also need to be able to give that away. And any opportunity that you have to give somebody something that creates value for them, that's like I call it a loop. It's I experience the same thing when I eat potato chips or pizza rolls. Like that first one was good. Let me have another one. Well, input is the same way. It's like, man, if you like that thing, you'll love this. You create a bit of a pipeline. John, what do you think?
You know how we start our coaching business on a high, only to get absolutely overwhelmed by the business side of things? We're suddenly supposed to be a full-time salesperson, marketing funnel maker, email marketing expert, social media manager, customer service rep, and tech expert all in one. Yeah, overwhelmed. Well, Lisa Cummings, our strengths coach friend, created a membership that gives you an insane member vault that will blow your mind. All the tools, systems, and templates to save you time and money. It's the actual assets Lisa used at Lead Through Strengths to build a successful strengths coaching business. All the assets are yours to customize and make your very own. She even gives you 2 years worth of emails you can use to serve your customers. So check it out at podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths. Again, podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths from Lisa Cummings.
On the whole, the digital age has been very good for myself and my input, because not only am I really strong in input, but I am also a minimalist. I don't like having lots of paper around. And even though I used to take pride in having, yes, a blazer, an input minimalist. Even though back in grad school, especially after that, I prided myself on having, all these bookshelves and hundreds of books. Over time, I just found that there was the clutter of having too many physical things contributed to a sense of mental clutter. And so, as technology advanced, I was able to begin to, first of all, okay, I can start to save digital resources, right? I can bookmark, website things, or I can find a way to store those on my computer. The Evernote app was the game changer for me when I first started using it in 2011. That has been the way of organizing not just ideas, but my life, right, ever since then. You mentioned, the importance, Ken, about being able to take photographs, right, and capture those memories. I love that. Having fewer things around me has been so nice. And I mentioned the note taking earlier, no longer needing to just take physical notes. I mean, I remember years ago, before Evernote, at the end of each week, I'd have a stack of like these sheets of like yellow legal paper, right? Taking copious notes from meetings that week. And I could never catch up. I could never get into inputting all of those notes into my computer into a way that I could easily retrieve it. And so I gradually began to stop taking those paper notes and to try to originate things digitally, electronically. I also love sharing resources and giving things away. The temptation of going in so many directions, right, through the digital age, so many resources to go after, that has been challenged. And what I try to do is tap into that strategic to ensure my strategic is putting a lasso on input and learner, and that I'm making good choices and not just soaking up or buying up books. I have some seasons where there's way too much input going on, right? And I need to get the yang to the yin.
Thank you. I also want to ask you both a question that has come up many times in coaching trainings. I know early days with Gallup, you would hear about the differentiation between input and learner and the debate around, are they so close that they should almost be one? And obviously, 20 some odd years later, they've kept them distinct. I see strong distinction. Since you both have them in your top 5, and almost always when I find one, I find the other. John, you have the trifecta, the input, intellect, and learner, that seems to always find each other. Curious, since you two both share this, your input is both, super strong, acute. How do you help people understand the distinction between input and learner?
I see learner as this deep primal drive, this this deep curiosity of not only learning new things but wanting to get better, wanting to reflect and become more self aware. Just always trying to become a more evolved person, a more conscious person, as well as wanting to be a really effective practitioner and to ensure that I've got ongoing knowledge base for the coaching work that I do, for the speaking, for the consulting work, and things like loving to travel and loving to go to new places, and so I think that input has a relationship to the learner in the sense that input drives a lot of the ways that I again collect, categorize, store, and retrieve those learning resources. But learner is like this raging river inside me that is never satisfied, that is never content, always wants more and more knowledge. And usually input's there to help corral that, I think. Those are some of my thoughts about it. What do you guys think?
Well, I have a similar talent profile to you. Strategic is my number 10, and intellection is 11 for me. So those are all those strategic thinking strengths. They fire pretty strongly for me. But to answer the question directly, the distinction for me is that learner is so focused on the process. There's an experiential element and there's enjoyment and there are instincts that drive you to just want to experience something. Just check it out, give it a run. And the difference is that while both of them are usually collecting and analyzing or processing some information, input hangs on to it. So it would be I like to think about it like when we were in college. It's like I'm taking this course and here are the materials that help guide it. And I think if learner just stands alone, you've taken the course and like, okay, great, I did that. And then you get rid of all the materials. But input has an instinct that it's like, I did that and I'm hanging on to this because I may want to reference it later or I may want to share it. And I need to have the resource in order to be able to go back and take a look or to share it with someone else. So input is about retention. I'm hanging on to the things. Learner is experiencing the things.
I've heard it put similar ways that you both just described it. And the input piece comes back to the mining the depths or the subject matter expertise. It's really where it will lock in and specialize. And I like what you said about the experiential side of learning because it is there for the ride. It has the experience of I'm always bringing in new information. I'm never satisfied that I know enough. The more I know I want to know more. Where input seems to have such an instinct for a real craft, a real expertise, coupled though with just the interest in being helpful, the interest in serving others. I love input moms because you'll never ever see them go anywhere without everything they need or forgot the last time they were out and forgot it. So the mom bag for an input just grows with time, especially for kids, because they'll never not be caught without the bee sting kit. They'll never not be caught without, the resource that's helpful. And I love that side of the application of input, wanting to contribute and be a part of benefiting others with the resources that it knows to have there.
Well, it's a shout out to all the parents with input. You tend to appreciate them more when you need something, like a Band-Aid or some ibuprofen or an extra umbrella or even like a spare T-shirt that they keep in their trunk. It has value somewhere, somehow, sometimes.
Some more Cheerios for the stroller.
Yes.
I was recently traveling with a high input person and I don't know what med I was looking for, but this case comes out with a pharmacy and it was Okay, I know who to ask if I ever have a need for whatever I have a need for. And it was such a brilliant example of it.
Yeah. Hey, the learner in me wants to hang on to what you just said, Brandon. And it is the value to teams and communities that I know who to ask. And I want that for people who are listening to this podcast. It's like when you have a teammate with high input, like you had mentioned earlier, the mind, the depth, I know who to ask because ask anybody with input. What is one of your specialty areas? What is one thing that you know so much about, like that you could have your own little museum or archive about it? And give them time to think about it. But each one of them, they have something.
That's cool. All right, so here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do for me. You have a lot of similarities in your profiles, but you have some pretty interesting differences. So, John, I'm going to come to you and ask you to take a look at Ken's and just start to go back and forth with each other around what you're noticing and maybe questions you have around input as it relates to, like, I'm very curious about input with Woo. That one I'm going, how's that work? How does that show up? And I know KBJ well, so I know some of how that goes, but I would love to hear you both start to piece and part here as we give some spaces. So John, why don't you dive in first on that one?
Yeah, Ken, I'm in addition to wondering about right how Woo helps drive that desire to share and to connect with others and to serve others. That combination of maximizer and arranger really intrigues me. How do you think those two come together as far as driving your top input strength?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I've thought about this a few times, and I've been asked this a few times because theme dynamics is just a thing a lot of coaches like to discuss. And I could tell you that I could break each one of them out to describe the dynamic. Input plus maximizer is I collect information, tools, and resources that help people and teams get better. Period. Input plus arranger is I collect all sorts of hacks. I collect tools, information, resources. I collect other people's, this is how to get the best out of Indianapolis. This is the best way if you're going to have this type of computer, how to get the best out of it. I collect those things. And when it comes to that dynamic of input and Woo, part of the way that I win others over is that I ask people about the things that they're interested in. And I remember it. And I remember their name, and I remember where they're from, and I remember small details about the things that give them joy. And for whatever reason, I don't know how I can do that or why I can do it. I just do. And it turns into like a relationship building strength. That input and Woo turns into something that makes it really easy for me to establish connections with people.
That's such a powerful. That's a superpower, right? Because we're all human. When someone remembers us, including our name, our face, remembers what's important to us, and builds on those things, and is able to, in some way, give us things that we need that are important to us. I'm envious of people like you that just seem to have that knack for not just the names and faces, but the conversations. And just hearing you describe that combination of, as you shifted the angle with maximizer and the hacks and arranger and the Woo, just what a powerful top 5 cocktail of really serving others in a way that gives you a deep sense of satisfaction.
Thank you. And I see that you lead with Achiever as well. So that's a little bit of a different combo because it has the executing element. How would you describe that interaction, the dynamic between Achiever and input?
Do you ever feel lonely as a coach or solopreneur? What if you had a place where you could surround yourself with like-minded coaches who truly get you, where learning, sharing, and growing together is the norm? Connect, Learn, and Share, started by Charlotte Blair, is a vibrant community of Clifton Strengths coaches from around the world. Hosted on the Circle platform, it's a place where you'll find people, processes, and events to help you grow your business, enhance your coaching and facilitation skills, and thrive in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment. Connect with coaches from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Learn through a calendar of recorded events across time zones and share your knowledge in a community built on an abundance mindset rooted in strengths. Visit podcast.34strong.com to learn more. Again, podcast.34strong.com to learn more about the Connect, Learn, and Share community.
Yeah. So, I think about achiever showing up in that sense of, wanting to having a strong work ethic, having particular goals that I want to accomplish. And I can look back and see how that achiever was at play during my journalism years in grad school when I was a pastor, certainly the last 20 years. And so I think that it's sort of a sense of, okay, I've got these particular goals. I have a thirst for excellence. I want to serve people well, right? And be a go-to kind of person. Part of that means that I need to constantly enhance my own knowledge and ensure that I have the resources available to serve others. So I'm not sure if I would know how to achieve success in different roles or success with goals without then tapping into that raging river of constant learning, using intellection to think through and process and kind of analyze what makes the most sense in terms of applying on the job. And then, fine tuning that with the strategic lens, ultimately, I think all of that informs how I use input to achieve things, right? To have had success across my career. It's funny. I remember when I was first certified by Gallup, that finding out that often there could be a very small percentile difference, like between your top 5 or top 10. And I really see them as this orchestra, these different instruments, coming together, making that one sound. I think my strengths number 2 through 5 and then some really create beautiful input music for me a lot of the time.
I love the reference. I like the song. I like the song that you're putting out there. That's a hit.
So for both of you guys, as you're thinking about input and some ways that our listeners might appreciate you taking us on a little deeper dive into it, and think of it like the treasures from 2 expert inputters that you could bring up and bring out to us that may not share this strength or work with people. Input has some level of frequency. So we're going to meet people who have this with some regularity, but some of us, as I shared, don't. And curious how you both might expand a bit on input, and you could pull in your other strengths or just continue to broaden our horizons. And I'll come to you, KBJ, first on that.
So we talk about engagement quite a bit in the world of work. And I would say that if you have a teammate or a colleague that leads with high input, you want to support them by creating opportunities where they do have responsibilities that are both the collection of the helpful resources, but probably just as important, the opportunity to share out. And depending on what their other themes are, that may be something where they're in a position where they get to communicate important updates relative to the team, or where they are seen as an expert in a particular area. This is like you were saying, Brandon, like this is the go-to person, but keep putting them in positions where they get an opportunity to share out. Because much like John has shown, there's a curating element to it. Sure, that person has read volumes, but they can have a way of giving you, these are the 3 core pieces of information that you need to know in order to do whatever it is that you're responsible for. Yeah. Can I share a story?
I would expect nothing less, my friend.
Yeah. I thought about this in preparation, and when I was in 3rd grade, at our library in the elementary school, I had read every single book that we had about spiders. And back in the day, you in the inside of the book, you used to have to write your name. And at one point, my third grade teacher, Mrs. Danigella, had noticed that, you know, I was the only one reading that book. I had checked it out 7 times in a row. So to your point, Brandon, I was deepening my knowledge and sharpening it. But she said to me, she said, you know as much about spiders as anybody I've ever met. And she said, would you like to give a presentation to the 6th grade class? And I was like, absolutely, I would love to, because I was that kid that was always, did you know? Did you know? Did you know that there are some spiders that live underwater and they can trap an air bubble and that's how they can breathe? So that was like probably the first. Yeah, it's a side conversation that we'll have. I'll save that for you, Brandon.
Not everybody do that.
Yeah, my teacher spotted something in me. She saw that input strength. I didn't have a name for it, but she put me in a position where it's like, now you can share this thing with other people who can get value from it. And that sticks in my mind as she was putting me in a position to do what I do best. And I think about that anytime I'm working with somebody who has input. How can I position them to be able to share out those valuable things that they have? So shout out to Mrs. Danigelis.
You know what I love about that story, among many things, is that she had this combination of wisdom and compassion to take that approach of celebrating this key area of curiosity and helping you feed on it. Other teachers may have said, you're reading that book too many times. You need to read stuff on, I don't know, rabbits, or, stuff on, math topics or whatever else. But, she didn't somehow judge your approach as being, less than ideal. And I think when you have a chance to have a teacher like that, or a coworker, or a leader, you just really feel that that sense of being able to soar at that strength. And I would add just the importance of encouraging people at work to follow their curiosity. And if you see that they're struggling to have the systems, the input output kinds of systems and processes, don't try to impose your own, because that ultimately doesn't work. But ask the kind of questions, give the kind of guidance, and maybe introduce them to a few tools that can help them to know how to get the most out of all those great ideas and things that they're pulling together. But to not I think too often curiosity in certain areas is discouraged, right? It's seen as you're distracting, you're not as motivated in the key things. But when you shut down someone's curiosity, in some ways you just really shut down some of that fire, and it never works out well in the end. So kudos to your teacher. I don't know if she's listening or still alive, but I'd love to meet her someday.
So my wife and I recently started a TV series. It's been out a long time, The Blacklist.
Yes.
And as you both were talking, I'm thinking about the main character of that show, and how, as you were telling your story, Ken, how each time that character comes into a space, he's taken us back to 3rd grade. He's taken us to the last summer I worked for. And every time I watch the show now, I just think, this is input on the screen. Like this is such a great example of input in a character for us to watch. Have either of you seen this or identified with that?
So my wife and I are in the middle of binging season 2. So we are working our way through the Raymond Reddington catalog.
How about you, Ken? Have you seen that one?
I've heard other people talk about it, but I have not seen it yet.
I'll tell you, an episode or two, you'll go, there's input. There it is, the way the way that it ties in. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you both for being here today, and just shout out to our listeners with input. So if you're listening today, you're high input, and you're really connecting with some of this information, you want to know more, either one of these gentlemen would be excellent resources for you. Encourage you to connect there. If you found the show valuable for those that you work with or have as clients, please do share. And we'd love to continue to spread the word of Coach to Coach and give other people a chance to take a listen and add to their resource library something that might be helpful to them. So with that, Ken, I'm going to come over to you first. If you could tell us tell the listeners where they could find you, what you're up to, who you're working with, where where they might be able to find a path to do something with you in the future.
Thank you, Brandon. I try to keep it simple. So it's Ken Barr Jr. across all platforms. So search Ken Barr Jr., LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Twitter, Facebook. And I work frequently with clients in a combination of nonprofits, a lot in education. My background is in higher education. And the maximizer in me is I work with people who really want to do the work. If you are here and you want to be here, then that's something that I am super engaged and motivated to help you get there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And I can speak for Ken's government experience because we've had some crossover in some of that realm. And Ken's been an excellent partner to 34 Strong. And so if you are listening and you ever need a team member to come in and support, Ken's a great guy to do that. So, Ken, thanks for joining today. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
John, how about you? Where can we find you? You talked about the executive coaching. I have to tell you, if we had a little more time, I'd unpack the journalist to pastor to coach to. I love the thread that you were weaving through the years of the career. But for our purposes today, where can folks find you and engage with you? Who you're looking for to work with? All those things that might be helpful.
Funny, I know job or education goes to waste. So I have consolidated my presence on LinkedIn. You can find me John M. DeMarco, PCC. Once you're there, it's very easy to either DM me or to use my Calendly to schedule some time for us to chat. I work with business leaders from various industries. I've done a lot of work with intact teams, often with an assessment such as the Clifton Strengths as a key part of that foundation. I also am doing more and more work in partnership with business schools. So working with business executives who have gone back to get their EMBA and to they go through a whole lot of assessments and other things to kick off that coaching, and I take that journey with them across their MBA program. And so looking to connect not only with individual leaders and teams of companies, but business schools as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So listeners, both of these gentlemen you could find on LinkedIn, as well as I'm sure they would be happy, as John said, as a link there if you want to set up some time with him. And we definitely encourage you to do that. As always, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Coach to Coach as we unpacked input. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take good care, and we'll talk to you soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.